Hi, I'm Trevor Watson from YME, and today I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Dr. Ian Marder. Ian, I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Trevor. So I'm a lecturer in criminology at Maynooth University in Ireland. I did my PhD in England, lived in England for a long time before moving over here. My PhD looked at the use of restorative justice by the police in two English forces. I'm happy to say that, in fact, it was Trevor who gave me my first job in restorative justice, where I did a little bit of research work helping to evaluate the restorative approaches to persistent and prolific offenders project in Durham many years ago, 2010, 11, something like that. And since then, I now teach and research in restorative justice and do quite a lot of work helping criminal justice agencies and governments around sort of policy making, strategy kind of development, practice development side of things as well.
Hi, thanks. Yes, it seems quite a long time ago, the meetup in Durham, and delighted to see the path that you've followed. Ian, what we're trying to do is get a feel from sort of a couple of our stakeholders about the impact of COVID-19. Can I just ask you, in terms of your work professionally and also for you personally, how has it impacted upon you?
So professionally, it's impacted on me in a few ways. The first of which is that we had to move overnight to online teaching. And for me personally, that wasn't so bad insofar as I'm very lucky that the majority of my teaching is in the autumn semester. So this semester, I only had one course, and that was a restorative justice course for master's students. So on one hand, it meant that, you know, as opposed to if this happened in the first semester, when I would have had, you know, lectures of 150 plus and about 400 students overall, this semester I only have the one course with a small group. And so, you know, I was able to speak to everyone individually to assuage their concerns. And also it meant that I could get them all live. So, I mean, part of what we've been doing has been recording lectures over PowerPoint, which is not ideal because, you know, in accordance with the restorative approach, you know, I do my lectures as participatory as possible. It's a conversation, it's a dialogue. And so I've been able to do that a bit over Zoom. And actually in my restorative justice module, what I do is I deliver that using circle processes. So I've been doing circles with the master students online, and it's okay. You know, it's good on Zoom because you can see all the faces. There's about 14 of us. So you can bring up gallery view, see everyone's face. The talking piece is just me saying your name, and it goes around approximately in a circle. So that's not been too bad. Although I am dreading if we're going to have to deliver courses online in September, because as I say, I'm going to have, you know, that's going to be a lot more difficult. Otherwise, professionally, you know, I had a whole bunch of trips canceled. A lot of the work I do is at the European level. I was supposed to be teaching in Italy, delivering a talk in Strasbourg at the Council of Europe. There was going to be a conference in Estonia, and all of that either got canceled or postponed or moved online. So it was tough, but, you know, it's all not a disaster, I guess. And then otherwise, working from home is okay. You know, I'd be someone who goes into the office every day. So I probably was more afraid of it than I needed to be, because actually it's not too bad. You know, all my stuff I fill it up my time with phone calls, with writing. Wish I had a more comfortable chair, but apart from that, you know, it could be worse. And then personally, it's okay. I live in Dublin here with my partner who's from Durham. And so, you know, it's tough because we can't go see either of our family. They both live in other countries, hers in Durham, mine in Germany. And, you know, but it's kind of not, I'm very lucky, and it's not been too bad for a number of reasons. So,
Well, thanks for that, Ian. I mean, we are seeing some let up on the lockdown, so let's I think, as we all do, hope things move forward. And just in that context, and just tapping into your sort of experience and your knowledge, and I know, and as you've mentioned, you've just recently published an academic paper which we make available through the YME website. Have you had any reflections upon the impact of COVID-19 for restorative justice and how you think it might change the way we do things, either in the UK and in particular? I know your work is European, and in terms of our European partners.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think there's a lot of stuff that could go either way. So in terms of restorative justice development, I'm very conscious of the fact that overwhelmingly governments and criminal justice agencies see it as a bit of a nice to have. And so, you know, if there is a significant strain on the public finances, then I suspect that restorative justice service development could be among the things that take a hit. But at the same time, you know, there's a big argument to be made around, you know, if you have released a bunch of people from prison who frankly probably didn't need to be there, and you're avoiding sending more people to prison who probably didn't need to be there, and making kind of these savings in other ways, stuff that, you know, restorative justice people and criminologists have been pushing governments to do for decades. And, you know, it's always been impossible. And then overnight, it turns out you can probably do a few things. And so there's definitely an opportunity to say, you know, look, this is worth investing in, you know, there will be long-term benefits to doing this. And so while you have the opportunity, to put it one way, created by the crisis, and while frankly, you might have a little bit of money swirling around in criminal justice pots from the fact that prison populations have gone down. And also maybe you're looking for something to do with this enormous backlog of cases in the courts. I mean, most of those cases are probably cases where there's limited social and individual benefit from prosecution anyway. So if you can set up, which is not to say do nothing, right? It's to say, can you make that decision? Can you have the decision-making process, which is more responsive, and an outcome which is more likely to reduce and repair harm? And so I think there is an argument to be made that actually restorative justice, you know, this shows that restorative justice should be expanded. Otherwise, you know, I think it's definitely forced all the RJ services to think about online mediation. And that could be a good thing, because I think there's definitely people, as you know, I think there's definitely people who would rather do online mediation, where online mediation for any number of reasons could better meet people's needs. Now, that's not to say that it should be the default, or that face-to-face shouldn't be explored, rather to say, you know, that it should be one of the options. And the fact that now we might have a bit of infrastructure and a bit of experience in doing that, you know, that'll help us to keep it as an option. I certainly hope that it doesn't become, you know, oh, well, this is cheaper, so let's do it this way most of the time. So that's kind of one thing. The other thing that I've found quite interesting, and you guys may have experienced this yourself, is that a lot of people I speak to who try to do things like communities of practice, or who try to do things like regular networking meetings and that kind of stuff, it's actually easier to get people together now that we're all used to being on Zoom and there's 30 of us on a screen. You can have a really good conversation. It doesn't take people an hour to get there and an hour to come back. And so they're maybe more willing to participate in that. So to the extent that the online technologies we've been forced to become more comfortable and experienced with, to the extent that those facilitate communication, that could be useful for a whole number of reasons.
That's really reflective, and I really appreciate your thoughts on that. I think as we go forward, I think it's certainly a wish of me that there are an opportunity to try to improve our practice, and I do like that idea of it adds to the options rather than takes away the face-to-face. I think that's a really insightful thought.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, especially for sharing among services, you know, the fact that there's a number of different service providers that are localized in England and Wales, for example, that's not inherently a problem in itself. In fact, that could be very good for a number of reasons. But what we need is to have easy ways for people to share best practice, to share information, to minimize, unnecessary overlap and to enhance the collaboration between these. And that's true within a jurisdiction with multiple providers like England and Wales. And it's also true, within a continent or across the world. And I've been facilitating on a monthly basis sort of just online meetings of European restorative justice providers, just to share, purely to share information about, how they found it, what kind of stuff they've been doing. And for the next one, we've had 2 meetings where we focused on using restorative justice and restorative practices in response to the crisis. And now we're going to move on to how might we use restorative justice and restorative practices to meet people's needs in the transition towards, a new normal. And the more collaboration, the more communication you have between countries, between services, between agencies, the better.
Ian, that's really helpful, and I thank you for that. And I'm certainly, just to finalise on the thread of sharing information, I'll just reiterate, we will make your excellent research document available on our website. Ian, Kath, thank you very much, and wish you well in Dublin, and hopefully we will get to meet face to face at some time in the future. Thanks very much, Ian.
Thank you, Trevor. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. Cheers.